Eretz Yisrael is the center of the universe and the most important place. But what's Eretz Yisrael properly? Where are its borders? This week's Parashas Masei, actually outlines all the borders. The thing is that these borders would shift over time, so that the original borders of Eretz Yisrael as laid out in this week's Parsha are one dimension. I'll bring out some maps to make it a little bit easier to understand. So there's one dimension of this week's Parsha, but then over time, the Jews would leave and come back. Those who came up from Bavel, the Ole Bavel, would have different borders altogether, which then only bear a slight relation to the modern borders of the modern state of Israel, as you can see behind me. So where these are is subject to great debate, and it's important because we have to appreciate that Eretz Yisrael, look, Hashem delineates the borders. Look at the second pasuk in the 34th chapter in this week's parsha. Hashem instructs Moshe to lay out the borders so the Jews know exactly where to keep the mitzvahs, where to live, and where that they're not allowed to depart. It says that you are coming to the land of Eretz Yisrael. It's going to fall to you as a special gift. Eretz Canaan, these are the borders. And then Hashem lays out the borders in great detail. So there are a few books, not so many, that take up the subject in the modern era of delineating these borders. There was a big tzaddik subject of important biography, Rabbi Yehosef Schwartz, who lays out his version of the borders. This is about 150 years ago. You have a later book about 100 years ago of Rav Goldhammer, the Admas Kodesh, who lays out his own borders, and we have Rav Chaim Kanievsky, who takes up many of the subjects that others don't write about. He wrote a book some 35 years ago called Derech Emunah that has its own borders. And because, I don't know about your Sefer Torah, mine does not come with a fold-out map, because there's ambiguity about where everything actually is, there is some debate. And the debate is significant. It's not just an abstraction. The Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is manifested in special milas. The inhabitants, the people living here, enjoy that. There is an aura. They're imbued with a certain mysticism that doesn't exist outside. It affects those living here. It affects those who are buried here. The pasuk tells us that the eyes of Hashem, Einei Hashem, are always on this land. It's the Nachal of Hashem. It's Hashem's special chosen place in the universe. Only in Eretz Yisrael can a person originate nevuah. It's Yitzchak Avinu was not permitted to leave here. So understanding exactly where the here is a consequence. Those who are living here are not actually allowed to leave here. And Eli Melech in Megillas Rus and his two sons Machlon and Kilyam will suffer terrible fates because of their decision to leave. Well, in the discussion of where the borders are, something came up just last year that's fascinating and worth noting. In the Admas Kodesh, he considers where the southeastern border is, and it's a little ambiguous. Here you have the map, and this is subject of some debate. And Rav Chaim Kanievsky takes him on in the debate, and he says that there's no river in the south. The Admas Kodesh said that there's no river in the south, but Rav Chaim said there most certainly is. And he explains that it's not always visible, that some of it goes underground. It doesn't seem to connect to the sea, but it does underground. Why he considers, does the Torah not mention that there's a river? It mentions explicitly the river of the Yarden. It doesn't mention this river that Rav Chaim calls Nachal Sin. And Rav Chaim says it's not continuously flowing, so it's not worthy of explicit mention. Last year, if you're following the news, you might have tracked that the secular authorities discovered a brand new river that they had not tracked, which is remarkable because Israelis are notoriously travelers and seekers and discoverers, and they thought they knew every square inch of the land. Well, it turns out the Ministry of Environmental Protection was not aware, but there is a river flowing in the southeast of the Dead Sea, southeast border of biblical Eretz Yisrael and eternal Eretz Yisrael. And then they found the book that was 30 years old and beat them to the discovery. Rav Chaim knew about it all along. Was it Ruach HaKodesh? Was it a divine assist? Was it simply pure knowledge of our texts? Our Gedolim know things that we do not know. But this is of consequence, and it's a subject of ongoing discovery, where actually Eretz Yisrael is. And as we said, there are huge nafkaminas for Jews, as there always were, and there will be in the future. Have a wonderful Shabbos.